and local emergency response platforms to maintain heightened vigilance and activate warning systems whenever necessary to reduce the risk of disaster. Residents are being urged to promptly report any unusual or rapid rise in water levels and to avoid activities such as swimming, washing clothes, or crossing waterways during this period. Authorities have also warned that evacuations may become necessary if rivers overflow their banks. Flooding linked to the overflowing Zio River has already affected several neighborhoods in the Gofe 1 and Gofe 6 municipalities in the Greater Lome area. Meanwhile, the National Civil Protection Agency says it is closely monitoring the river through its early warning system and remains on standby to provide emergency assistance to affected communities.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting. More on security-related matters, this time in Nigeria, because the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Idi Abbas, says the masterminds behind large-scale crude oil theft in the country remain difficult to apprehend, despite ongoing efforts to dismantle illegal refining sites across the Niger Delta. The naval chief says security agencies are making progress against oil theft networks, but major financiers and kingpins continue to evade arrest. Correspondent Yechenu Sasetu reports.
The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Idi Abbas, made the remarks while speaking on ongoing efforts to combat crude oil theft and other maritime crimes in Nigeria. According to him, the Nigerian Navy has recorded significant successes in the destruction of illegal refining sites and the interception of stolen crude oil and refined products. However, he noted that while many illegal facilities have been dismantled, identifying and arresting the major sponsors behind the criminal networks remains a challenge.
As it stands today, I can say that our coastal areas and the riverine areas are relatively safe. What we are contending with mostly there now is this issue of crude oil theft and then some pockets of sea robbery, which we are able to curtail.
Despite the challenges, the naval chief said the Nigerian Navy, in collaboration with other security agencies, is continually reviewing its strategies to counter the evolving tactics of oil thieves.
It's in realization of the changing dynamics of security and the asymmetric nature of warfare we're fighting now that we decided to come up with the Nigerian Navy Marines who are trained to fight both on land and water. And the first inaugural batch have been inducted, and so far so good, they are doing well.
The issue of crude oil theft remains a major concern for Nigeria's economy, with experts estimating that the country loses significant revenue annually through illegal bunkering, pipeline vandalism, and illicit refining activities. Security analysts say while the destruction of illegal refineries is yielding results, greater attention must be paid to tracking financial networks and prosecuting those who finance and coordinate the operations. For WADR, Yechinu Sasetu in Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now bring you an update about the legislative and municipal elections held across Guinea and the diaspora on May 31, because yesterday, Thursday, the Director General of the elections declared the ruling Generation for Modernity and Development GMD party as the clear winner of the polls. The ruling movement secured over 100 seats in the future assembly. Imo Edit reports.
The provisional results released by the Electoral Commission disclosed that the ruling coalition of President Mamadi Doumbouya dominated legislative polls across the country and in the diaspora. The ruling political movement secured most of the seats contested in the 50 electoral districts, including major areas such as Conakry, Kindia, Labé, Kankan, and Zerokore. Based on the provisional results, the General Modernity and Development dominated the 127 constituency seats, while the 20 proportional representation seats were distributed among several parties, including the UMP, New Beginning, RJT, Fidel, and others. The DGE, the body responsible for organizing elections in Guinea, said voter turnout during the May 31 election stood at nearly 53%. The provisional result will now be reviewed by the Supreme Court before the final composition of Parliament is confirmed. With the conclusion of these elections, Guinea has finalized the final process of restoring constitutional rule after 5 years of a transitional process led by the CNRD. Guinea is, however, embracing democracy as critics, political observers, and civil society continue to denounce the continuous rights violations, arbitrary arrests, and forceful disappearances, media suppression, and rising cost of living, among others.
Imo Edit filed that report. Still on matters of elections, the Gambia's Electoral Commission has detected more than 24,000 suspected cases of double voter registration. This follows the conclusion of the country's 2026 voter registration exercise. The discovery was disclosed at a stakeholder meeting to discuss electoral reforms and enhance transparency for upcoming electoral activities. WADR Sangdanal Mendy reports.
The Independent Electoral Commission says it has detected more than 24,000 suspected cases of double voter registration following the completion of the 2026 nationwide voter registration exercise. Speaking at the Commission's monthly stakeholder meeting, IEC Chairman Joseph Coley disclosed that 212,095 people registered between 8 April and 24th May 2026.
212,095. Male, 96,581. Female, 115,504.
Mr. Coley also revealed that 8,169 voters transferred from one polling station to another during the registration period. According to the IEC chairman, the Commission's biometric matching system identified 24,058 suspected cases of double registration during a verification process.
The biometric matching detected a suspected total of double registration amounting to 24,058 persons registered more than once.
He said individuals found to have registered more than once could face legal consequences, including prosecution or disqualification from participating in elections, as multiple registration is a criminal offense under Gambian electoral laws. Mr. Coley, however, noted that further adjudication is underway to verify the suspected cases before any final action is taken. He added that once the provisional voter list is published and the revising court process is completed, the final registration figures from the 2026 exercise will be incorporated into the voter register established in 2021. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
You're still listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, streaming around the world at wadr.org. We're also live on YouTube and on Facebook. Here's a recap of our top stories. Nigerian authorities announced the deaths of over 40 travelers due to dehydration during Tabaski. The Naval Headquarters in Nigeria calls for multi-sectoral collaboration to combat oil theft in the Niger Delta region. The Gambia Electoral Commission detects 24,000 double registrations after voter exercise. And Guinea's ruling Generation Modernity for Development Party wins majority seats in the May 31 legislative and municipal elections. Still ahead, we have guest interview and sports. Do stay.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now come home to Senegal, where commemorative events marking the 100th birth anniversary of former President Abdoulaye Wade continue. A conference on his political journey and enduring legacy took place today, Friday, at the African Renaissance Monument in Dakar. Although the former leader, who now resides in Versailles, France, stepped away from active politics, his role in advancing democracy and political pluralism in Senegal and across Africa continues to be widely acknowledged. Wadr, a senior figure in the Senegalese Democratic Party founded by former president, says Abdoulaye Wad's influence remains deeply embedded in the country's political and democratic evolution.
Le Sénégal a eu toujours un régime démocratique multipartisan.
Senegal has always had a multi-party democratic system in its constitution and laws. Yet, in the early years of independence, political parties were often dissolved, absorbed into the ruling system, or their leaders pushed into exile. In that context, Abdoulaye Wade succeeded in building a legally recognized opposition party. He showed Africans and Senegalese, in particular, that political power could be won through the ballot box rather than through force. At a time when many African leaders were being overthrown, imprisoned, or exiled, Wade championed democratic competition and the peaceful transfer of power. He also promoted political dialogue across the continent, bringing together political parties and opposition groups in Dakar and encouraging engagement among leaders who would not normally speak to one another. As president, Wade supported efforts to restore constitutional order in countries affected by coups and played a role in resolving political tensions in the region. Above all, Abdoulaye Wade was a steadfast defender of democracy and the rule of law.
A été un combattant de la démocratie et du régime légal.
Wade is a senior figure in the Senegalese Democratic Party founded by former President Abdoulaye Wade, and we will be bringing you more on the legacy of the statesman later in the bulletin. For now, let's go to Ghana and talk about digitalization and child protection, because the country's Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation is proposing a policy that would require internet users to verify their age with a national identity card or driver's license before accessing adult websites. Now, according to Sector Minister Samuel George, the measure is aimed at protecting children from exposure to sexually explicit content online. Nade Tete completes the story.
Concerns about children's exposure to online pornography are driving calls for stricter controls on access to adult content in Ghana. Communications Minister Samuel Nati George says age verification requirements for adult websites could help prevent minors from accessing sexually explicit material and strengthen child protection efforts in the digital space. Speaking at the 4th Inter-Parliamentary Conference on Family, Values and Sovereignty, the minister pointed to measures adopted in the United Kingdom where users must verify their age before accessing certain adult websites.
Ask yourself why they are doing that. Because they've seen the danger and the damage that pornography and over-sexualization have done to a generation of young UK citizens.
Mr. George says he intends to submit a proposal to Cabinet that would require users in Ghana to provide either a national identity card or driver's license before accessing X-rated websites. According to the minister, the initiative forms part of broader efforts to protect children as internet access expands and online content becomes increasingly accessible. He argues that safeguarding children online should be a shared responsibility and said society must take deliberate steps to preserve the values and well-being of younger generations.
And that's why for us, we believe that in Ghana here, and we're working with going to Cabinet on that, to make sure that before you access any X-rated site, you must put either your driver's license or your national ID card, so that we know who you are and who is going to that site, to prevent children from being exposed to such content. This is the real threat. Because when a child is over-sexualized at an early age, it affects their development, it affects their thinking, it affects even their morality and their values and their standards.
If approved, the proposal would require users to prove they are at least 18 years old before gaining access to adult websites, placing Ghana among a small number of countries that have adopted mandatory age verification measures for online adult content. The minister did not indicate when the proposal would be presented to Cabinet. For WDR, Nade Tete, Accra.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview today focuses on Senegal as the nation continues to pay tribute to its former president Abdoulaye Wade, who has turned 100 years old. This Friday, a conference on his political journey and enduring legacies ongoing at the African Renaissance Monument in Dakar. And WADR has been speaking to Dr. Ibrahima Khan, an AU governance expert on Wade's political influence.
This is the first time in Senegalese history that we celebrate a politician who reached 100 years in life. And that itself is, in my view, very significant. And it's always good that people celebrate the life of Abdoulaye Wade because he contributed a lot to the progress of democracy in Senegal in the 80s and in the 90s. And I think also when Abdoulaye Wade was president in Senegal, his contribution to the work of the African Union, particularly the creation of NEPAD, and on many other issues, he really contributed to raise the profile of the country at the international level, as Senghor did it and Abdou Diouf.
You also mentioned some former presidents' names. Why don't you think Senegal is not acknowledging their work holistically or nationally, given the kind of recognition that is being given to former President Abdoulaye Wade today?
Well, I think, what Abdoulaye Wade contributed to do in Senegal is to bring the rural population at the heart of the state. Senghor was an intellectual. He was part of the elite. Abdou Diouf was the typical civil servant in Senegal and who was only interested in the implementation of the law, making sure the rule of law is implemented and other. But Abdoulaye Wade, by his origin, because he's coming from the central part of Senegal, he is also a fervent followers of the Muslim Brotherhood that is called the Murids, and he contributed to really put all these the religious group, all these things at the heart of the state. And I think his popularity comes from the fact that many people who were excluded from the state institution, from the state functioning, associated themselves with the image of Wade because Wade brought them into the heart of the state.
This is interesting. Now, it will be expected that such a statement's legacy or relevance, political relevance in particular, will still be felt through the existence of his political party, the PDS. But this is not the case today. The PDS is more likely inactive when it comes to Senegalese politics. What do you think would be some of the reasons? I'm particularly concerned whether Abdoulaye Wade prepared his replacement, given the fact that there will be time like this where he will retire from politics?
Well, that's a very interesting question. But, you need to understand where Wade came from when he decided to get into politics. The first time many Senegalese like me heard about Abdoulaye Wade was the OAU summit in 1919 in Mogadishu, where Abdoulaye Wade met with Senghor and expressed his the possibility or his intention to create a political party. And he called it a party that will contribute to the work that the then unique party, which was the the UPS was having in Senegal. So his first party, when Senghor accepted the idea of having a party that will contribute to the work that he was doing, it was a party of contribution, as he said it at the time.
You heard there Dr. Ibrahima Khan, an AU governance expert. He was speaking to my colleague, Augustine Colley. And we count down to the kickoff of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We turn our attention to Ghana, where the captaincy of the Black Stars is more than just an armband. It is a symbol of national pride, leadership, and immense expectation. Today, the responsibilities rest on the shoulders of Jordan Ayew, a player whose journey in the Black Stars, especially as they go to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, has been closely watched, debated, and many times misunderstood. Sankule Janko tells us more.
Jordan Ayew has spent more than a decade wearing the colours of Ghana, but as Black Stars head to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, his role has never been bigger. The son of Ghanaian football legend Abedi Pele is now captain of the national team, leading a squad that combines youthful talent with experienced campaigners. At 34, this will be Ayu's third appearance at the World Cup and perhaps his most important. His appointment as captain came at a challenging period for Ghanaian football, with supporters eager to see the Black Stars return to their former heights. In addition to carrying the weight of the captaincy, Jordan Ayew, like his brother, faces pressure as comparisons to his legendary father Abedi Pele continues to drag on.
Football says the truth on the green grass. So whatever people say outside, everyone has his opinion. We're allowed to say anything we want. At the end of the day, you just need to keep your head straight and do what you do best. And I don't compare myself to my dad. Yeah. And I've never said that I want to be like Andre, or I want to be like my dad, or I want to be like Uncle Kwame, or I've never put in my, I've always wanted to do my own life.
But Ayew has responded with leadership both on and off the pitch, playing a key role in Ghana's qualification campaign and delivering crucial goals when his team needed them most. Now, with Ghana preparing to face England, Croatia and Panama in a difficult group, the responsibility on the skipper has only increased, especially with injuries affecting key players.
Yeah, we know we've lost four games, but we need to look at the performances. Some we didn't perform well, some we did well, and listen, the past is the past. It's a new chapter, and we just need to focus on what's ahead of us, and obviously tomorrow is the first step.
Ayew has called on Ghanaians to remain united and continue believing in the team. As the tournament approaches, all eyes will be on the Black Stars captain to see whether his experience and leadership can inspire another memorable chapter in Ghana's football history. For Jordan Ayew, this World Cup is not just about results. It is about leadership, legacy, and carrying the hopes of a nation.
And on that sporty note, we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting in Dakar, Senegal. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to the entire technical team for their support. Do continue to interact with us on our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English. I am Atiewen in Villa. Good evening and happy weekend.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.